All About Beer receives underwriting support from Common Roots Brewing Company. They understand the importance of independent journalism in the beer space, and their support helps fund original work. Learn how you can affordably support journalists by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support.
Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl, and Sarah Riel of Hot Plate Brewing is here. The small brewery in the Berkshire Mountains of Massachusetts is leading the way when it comes to showing what a modern community space centered around beer can be. Stay tuned, you're going to learn a lot. First, I've been talking about this on the show for a while, and you often hear Andy Crouch at the cold open of the shows, but the way we're able to keep bringing original content to the beer industry and to curious beer drinkers is through your support. We've created an affordable underwriting program that is easy on your budget, helps you get visibility, and is an altruistic way to directly fund writers, photographers, and editors. Please visit allaboutbeer.com/support to learn more, and I hope you'll sign up. When you're at the website, poke around a bit. You can read some of the recent articles we've posted. You can peruse our archives, which go all the way back to when All About Beer was founded in 1979. Tune into other podcasts like Brewer to Brewer and the All About Beer podcast. You won't be disappointed. You can also follow us on social media at All About Beer to keep up with everything else we have going on. We'll get into this conversation in a moment, but first, here is a note from this episode's sponsors. We thank them for their support, and we hope you'll give them your business.
Calling all hopheads. Dogfish Head's 60-minute IPA is a fantastically hoppy India Pale Ale that's beautifully balanced thanks to their unique continual hopping method. Delivering a pungent hop flavor that isn't crushingly bitter, 60 Minute is continually hopped throughout the boil for a full 60 minutes. Starting to see where the name comes from? Check out dogfish.com to learn more and to find some 60 Minute near you. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
Hot Plate Brewing Company in Pittsfield, Massachusetts opened a few years ago. Co-founders Sarah Riel and Mike Delaquia started it after they moved from Brooklyn. Riel, the brewer, comes from a family of entrepreneurs, and the duo have worked to have the brewery become part of the town and the area. This is through events and community building, education, and being authentic to themselves and what they want the brewery to be. Riel, who also serves on the board of the Pink Boots Society, has experimented with different kinds of fermentation and is always trying to introduce diverse beer styles to the menu. She joined me to talk about brewery life in January, the struggles of the moment, and what they've learned along the way to make the business stronger going forward. Here's our conversation. So 3 years of Hot Plate now, and I'm wondering, it's always fun like when people hit anniversary milestones because it's a chance to look back. And what is it about the last 3 years that you feel has, I don't know, defined the brewery?
I think it's what, we started with this urge to do good and fight through kind of all the crap that's going on. Obviously, starting a business is extremely challenging. Starting a business building the business during COVID, coming out of COVID, and now trying to truck on in these uncertain times is extremely challenging, but we've seen that our tenacity each year has helped us just kind of get over that hump. And talk about planting seeds and having them grow. And we hope that this next year kind of brings more growth from what we've put in the ground. It's challenging to keep innovating and understanding how we need to reach our consumers and make them feel welcome. And just kind of continue to revisit what we thought we saw in our direct community as a need and how we can pivot to continue to match the evolving needs of our community. So it's a lot of looking back, continuing to just, also look at the day of and what we need to get done this day. But then also forward looking, on a number of levels.
So we've spoken in the past about this, and I love, not on the show, but I love that approach, right? And what I've been in previous conversations, following you on social media, hearing from others, like a lot of what you just said sounds nice on paper. It sounds nice on a brewery, about us site of just
Mhm,
like, oh yeah, no, I feel good about that kind of thing, right? But
mhm,
it's so hard to put into practice
mhm.
and then to sustain it. I think anyway. Um, but you're doing it, and I'm wondering what kind of very real work does it take to to build the business that way and to keep it going and then to improve upon it over time.
I mean, it does take its toll. It's as we are trying to be leaders in our various communities, it is challenging because, people are looking to us to lead and we don't necessarily have people that we can look to in the same way. Obviously, we have our mentors, we have our close group of friends who have kind of seen us go through a lot. But there is a very small group of, like-minded business owners that we can be frank with. So it is challenging at times. I think staying strong and really being able to do the calculus of, maybe hosting an event and maybe the first time it doesn't go well and we're like, oh, either not necessarily losing money, but it didn't perform the way we wanted to. And so we try it again. And, we're willing to try almost anything once, but understanding, do we think that this is something that could catch on and is within the scope of our values versus just a cash grab? And there are things that we could do that could be a cash grab and would definitely help our bottom line. But if that doesn't fall within our values, then we have to say no. And it is challenging because when we look at the stark numbers, especially with the end of last year and dry January, it is a challenge to kind of think, okay, what can we do to bring more people in just for the money? But we also have to look at, is that going to kind of ruin this thing that we've continued to build? So we have to look at the effort that we're putting in. Is it the reception that we're getting back? So kind of looking at it in very business terms of what's that ROI, and are we spinning our wheels just for our values, or are we actually is it bringing us something back? And whether that is someone who knows that they can count on us to be open for something, whether they know they can count on us on, a monthly event that we hold that they really look forward to. But it's also talking to our customers, and you're always going to have that, the handful of customers. It's like, oh, you should do this, or I really like a red ale, and this, you should serve
Hang on a second. We do need more red ales.
Exactly.
Like
That's fair. That's
I'm not
fair.
going to let that slide. Oh, let's dismiss Crazy John at the end of the bar who wants a red ale. No, no, no. Listen
That's
to
fair.
Crazy John who wants a red ale at the end of
Maybe
the
I should
bar. Yeah.
say with the people who tell me I should have more than one New England IPA, that,
Oh
uh,
no, those people can go to hell.
so it's,
But more red ales. Yeah.
exactly. It's listening to those people and go, oh, okay, great idea. Or, the classic, like, you should name a beer, Uncle John's this. And you're like, okay, great. But understanding kind of through the stories people are telling and being able to really hear them and what they're kind of pining for. And Mike is a great storyteller and he's a great listener, and he can really pick up on nuances. And he works front of house a lot. My old job as a consumer insights market researcher, I can ask kind of questions when people in a conversation that I'm just kind of trying to dig a little deeper to what they're actually getting towards. And so sometimes you are spending hours on end with one customer at the bar because it's a slower night or with a group of people. So it is listening to people and balancing that with kind of what you're hearing, quote unquote, everyone else say, or what the industry is saying, in that balance. And you do have to take risks on some things because you can listen to your gut and it's not always going to be right. But it is about, it's unfortunately not one easy thing. It's about, what have you done in the past? What do you want to do in the future? What funds do you have to kind of push something forward? And what are your people saying? And then also, how are you protecting yourself, your business, and your employees?
Yeah. So I mean, gosh, there's so much that you just said there that I want to follow up on. But like, what have been some of the examples of events or initiatives that sounded great at first and didn't take off the way that you wanted, that you saw through, that are now paying dividends? And then conversely, like, something that you thought, was going to work, and then just you had to let it go.
Uh, Bingo is something that I love bingo. So I've tried to push for it. It just does not do well. I don't know why. We have tried to pair it often, not just like bingo, you come in and win money, but we've tried to pair it with a 501(c)(3, so to have it be a donation-based thing. When we work with larger 501(c)(3s, they tend to bring in their group. But that is something that just has not worked. And
Really?
we'll do it as a special occasion thing, as part of an event or something. But it's very odd because I know for some people like that works like gangbusters. It just, I don't know what it is. Maybe all the other bingo halls around the county, they have it on lock, but it just doesn't work for us. But I'm also a very dry bingo caller, so maybe let's look at the common denominator there.
I, I,
Uh,
I will say, having an enthusiastic bingo caller. I was at a brewery in Chicago last week that was doing their bingo night, and he is a sixth grade teacher by day.
oh,
And he goes to the local like Goodwill and buys, $20 worth of crazy crap. And like, you get to come and pick your Goodwill prize, and people were excited. Like
that's
it,
that's
it
a, that's a
was,
great idea.
it was, like, I normally don't play bar games, because it gets in the way of drinking. And I was like, I'm gonna do this because this
Yeah,
is this is fun. And then I got
yeah,
distracted by a red ale of all things.
of course.
And
The thing that kind of started slowly and has definitely had a following, and we're very happy about it for a number of reasons, is bring your own vinyl night. So once a month, we have a DJ come and you bring your records and you kind of put a post-it on it with your name and the track you want to hear. So what has been nice about this whole thing is that we have seen that it crosses generations. So it's very cool to see people, bring in like a Chapel Roan album, and you're like, this is new vinyl versus someone that has the first pressing of like a Led Zeppelin album, that they've had in their collection for decades. And people, based on like, oh, this is because they call it like, oh, this song is for Sarah or something.
yeah,
See people go up to one another, oh my gosh, you have this, and start talking about music. And it is super exciting. And the DJ also brings like bins. You can record dive and buy stuff there, which is nice, or just pull, and listen to have him pull a song from there. But it's been really nice that we see like it's just such a positive feeling in the tap room, and just seeing multiple generations, and then also like large groups of tables form, and everybody's like talking about albums, looking through albums, talking about other music. The conversation of like, oh, my first concert, and that's always a good conversation starter for things. But it's just been a really, really positive thing that we've seen. And it's fairly low lift. Like once we kind of gotten the cadence of it, it's fairly low lift for us. And I mean, we have a record collection as well. And so that's one of Mike's favorite nights at the bar, because it's like he can go in and participate and not just, have to be behind the bar, but it's something where we can participate in as well.
I there's something so cool about that, because I'm I've really been thinking a lot about the bar experience, right? Because when I go, it's like I'm usually talking with, owners or brewers, or whoever, occasionally folks at the bar, and I'm there for the beer and, sort of the experience. But as a consumer, when there's something else to talk about than just the beer or whatever might be on a TV, if a brewery has a TV, um, that really does help foster like a cool sense of community. And I think kind of gets, and I don't know, when you were explaining that, it sounded like, craft getting out of its own way
Hmm.
and letting us experience other things, with beer just kind of going back to the glass as, something that we hold on to as opposed to, the center of the universe when you walk into places. And I love that. Like that's it's heartening, and
Yeah.
it helps people associate beer and the brewery experience, the bar experience, with more than just, I don't know, what's been front and center for so long.
Right. And we kind of, again, through our learnings, have tried to understand, because people ask us if we're going to ever have a mug club, and we're like, we don't want to do a traditional mug club. And there are laws in Massachusetts that technically, we're not supposed to serve discounted beer, all of that. So we kind of tried to rethink what can we do and what leads into our values. So we launched in January the Scrum. So, kind of that comes from that tech world of just like trying to develop something very quickly. And we took it as like, and you can go to our website and see it says developing a resilient community together.
Yeah.
So it's what it is, each month is themed. And so, we had like January, the theme was setting intentions. And then we have a 501(c)(3) that we partner with. So in January, it was the Food Bank of Western Mass. We also do a community book read that Mike manages. And once a month, you can come in, he chooses a book, you can come in and talk about it. Last year, he started at the end of last year. We actually had one of the authors, he was a New York Times bestseller, and he actually zoomed in and had a discussion. So it was really
That's
nice that
cool.
there are different ways to do that. And so you can come in, and through our various events, you can get different points. So like you get 1 point when you just kind of check in and have a beer. If we're doing, a benefit, say benefit karaoke or something, you might get 5 points for that. So various events and various visits have different points. And then we have a leaderboard. So it's that kind of that competition, that friendly competition thing. And each quarter, the top people, we're not sure yet how many, we'll do some, like a private tasting with me, or, do some R&D with me, or something kind of special that again is bringing that community together in a different way. And so it's, for us, it's this club that it really is about coming out and taking action. And again, so it's not, you just scan your QR code. You don't have to come and buy a beer. You can, come and be with friends, buy a coffee, things like that. So, because we got a lot of questions, oh, is it incentivizing drinking? And I'm like, well, I feel like sometimes mug clubs do that just inherently. And so this is just, it's about coming out and being together. And that's why when we have events that we're trying to get the broader community to come to, they have higher point values because they are important and different and aren't necessarily focused around the beer. Saying that, we have every year in February, I release 10 small batch beers, 10 nights in a row, because there's a Pittsfield wide 10 by 10 festival. It's about arts and the community. And so obviously that, that's its own thing, but you get points that way. But it is about kind of tuning in to each month and what are we trying to accomplish each month and who we're looking to partner with each month, so that there's something new and fresh, and something that can bring a little life to, the public house.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just something that I feel like was starting to get lost pre-COVID in the beer space, and then certainly was hugely disrupted. And now, it's sort of hard for folks to reconnect with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I've had this conversation with so many other people, but it's, during COVID, people made their homes so comfortable,
Right.
that, why should I leave?
Right.
And, when breweries like yours are giving people an excuse to do that, I think it's pretty important.
Yeah.
Um,
And sorry, just on
no,
that
no, no,
point,
please.
the last year's BA data, the Northeast, it was, we look at occasions for drinking, and like the Northeast, I think, was statistically more likely than the West Coast to say that they just drink at home. I think it was 40% drink at home. So when people are talking about competition, what are we battling with? It's like we're literally battling with the couch.
Yeah.
So especially in states um, that have, cannabis that's legal, that's also another thing. So, how do you manage that? But it is this thing that we're trying to get people out, and, especially in bouts of cold weather or anything. It's like we need to let those consumers know that we understand that their time and money is valuable, and we would like to make their venture out worth it.
Yeah. I mean, up where you are, and I mean, even to an extent here in Jersey, they're going out. I know dry January hurts a lot of places to begin with, or, at least it's talked about in that way. But it's also been like 8 degrees,
Exactly.
for the last 3 weeks around here. And, I don't want to leave
Right.
the house. Like, it's just, I feel good when I do. And I think it's good for mental health as well to get out of your own four walls and go see other people and be in a place with, something that is not, the same TV in front of you. But
Mhm.
it's hard. I want to go back to what you were saying about the 10 for 10 or the 10 by 10,
Mhm.
and coming up with 10 small batch recipes for a limited amount of time seems stressful.
It's insane.
Do you try to do something that's different, or is it like the old trick of, well, this is an IPA with Simcoe Mosaic, but this
Oh no,
one
I
is
I of
Mosaic
course
and Simcoe? Yeah.
try and do something different because, I'm very competitive with myself. It started because the first year we launched, we didn't know about the 10 by 10. And when we opened, 10 by 10 is like the second week in February, and people are like, "Oh, what are you doing for this?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of this thing," because we weren't from the area.
Yeah.
And we had 10 of our 12 taps were filled. So we're like, let's just kind of eventize every night around one beer and explain, whether it's something that the name came from or something like that. And then I, of course, was like, well, for next year, we got to do something. Why don't I just make 10 beers? And then that's how it started. And as soon as the words left my mouth, I'm like, what am I doing to myself? So it's really just on my test system, 5 gallons, so very small. And I do them in 500 milliliter bottles, and then we do like the nice wax dip. And again, I just try and make it so hard for myself. We wax dip them, we emboss them. We have an artist a separate artist do the label every year. For me, it's about kind of half of them are things I've always wanted to make, but I know I probably can't make at scale. Like the first year I did a bergamot wit beer. It's like I cannot afford bergamot oil, at scale. So let's just do
Sure.
it's fun. And then some other things like last year I did a lime lager. I'm like, let me just see how this goes. I'm interested in doing this, and it flew. And I was like, great, I'm going to scale that up. That's how I scaled up my sour as well. So it's a little bit of R&D for me. And then also I like to bring back, I did like a Kentucky Common. I did
Oh, fun.
like kind of the a Polish beer, like things that are kind of forgotten and just a little bit of fun. The one this year where I did, say, okay, it is a different beer. I did pull off one of my beers because it's going to be a pickle beer. So I'm like, what? I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just have to be able to balance this correctly. But yeah, it's kind of just a mix of like, what have I been wanting to do? What's something that might have, because I'm experimenting more with mix firms. So this is a way that I can do different mix firms. I love a saison. Saisons don't do well in our tap room, so there's always a saison that happens. This time it's with a North Carolina, this enormous squash that I found at
Oh,
my local farm. So yeah, I try and do, again, it's the onus is on me. I've done this to myself, but do try and make them different.
that's really cool. Um, and again, it has that sort of R&D component as well, where if something really connects, you can scale it up and you can make it like that's a fun way of doing it. I wanted to go back to something that you just said, about being in competition with yourself.
Mhm.
And I wonder how you approach that as, or like, can you go a little bit deeper into that and how that fuels you and the brewery? Because I liked that so much because it's, people talk about, well, that place down the street is doing better than we are, and you get sort of caught up, and it's, I'm thinking of the TV show Bluey, where, it's run your own race and don't worry
Mhm.
about what other people are doing. Like there's there's something like really comforting about that. And I imagine there's also great personal satisfaction that comes with that, and even professional satisfaction of, you know, beating yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Is
mean
that fair? Yeah.
it's yeah, and it's gratifying and stressful all at the same time. I think it starts with I've always been very inquisitive, and I've always wanted to figure out how things work. So it's just, the answer, much to the chagrin of my parents, like I was that kid just asking why. I just like why, but like I want to know how things work. And then once I figure out how things work, it's like, okay, well then how does this, this part is part of a bigger system. How does that all work? And so it's just this kind of search for knowledge, that once I learned, I'm like, great, I can improve upon this, or how do I take this and use this? And then just kind of coming into the beer industry later in life, not going up through the ranks, but coming into it later in life, being a woman, being a Latina, there was, obviously imposter phenomenon through the roof. And so it was, I just have to be the best that I can be each day, because that's all I know. And so I also understand, and so many years spent in the corporate world, it's like I know I can't know everything, so I have to build a team around me. So what's something that I would love to learn about, but I know someone has a specialty in that, so I'm going to bring them on my team, or I'm going to ask them that. And so it's about, where can I lean on people, and where do I need to learn these things myself, and give space for myself to learn them, and also give space for myself to fail. And then what am I learning from those failures? And, sometimes I am too harsh on myself, but I feel like a lot of people are that way. And it's never going to be good enough, but that's what keeps pushing me, because, to me, a recipe is never done. And so there are times when I have to just say, no, it is done.
Yeah.
It's done for now. I need to work on other things. But in my head, I'm like, I can technically, I could do a little more here. I could do a little more there, but I also have the business to run. So I can't just, play in my laboratory all day. Um, so it is just about pushing myself, because, if I can't be happy with what I'm putting out, then how am I supposed to expect people to come in and enjoy it? And again, there are times I have to be like, this is what it is. It's fine. And you do pivot when you make a mistake. And, if it's still a drinkable beer, you go, okay, it's a different name, it's a different style, or, whatever. And you kind of think about what happened on the back end. But it's just about pushing myself, because especially as a business owner, everybody, what they're presenting is obviously very different than what's going on internally. So I can't look at what people are presenting externally and think that that's the truth. So I can only know what's going on with me, and I can talk to people I trust and understand how things are going. And, listen to what market reports say or style reports say. But in the end, I have to understand what the consumers around here are thinking, and what we're doing, and how that's fitting in with our goals. And I have to keep myself interested as well. I can't just keep making the same thing over and over again, because that gets boring.
Yeah. So you're just back from New Orleans, and the annual Pink Boots Society get together
Mm.
meeting. How was it this year?
It was great. It was a smaller group. We had about, well, there were some cancellations because it fell when all that snow was falling. So
Yeah.
almost 200 people. But I mean, we had, someone from Australia, someone from Norway. I believe there were a couple other international people, which was great. Seeing different faces that you usually just see on Zoom or not at all. And it was a great range of talks. I'm the VP now, so I was a little more busy running around and didn't get to enjoy as much as I wanted to. But we had hard conversations about what it means to be a woman or a non-binary person in this industry. The trajectory of the industry, work-life balance, mental health, what happens when you speak out. But then you also had talks about, we did sensory and what that really means, and understanding biotransformation. So it's always a nice mix of kind of what everybody goes through on a daily basis in their lives. So it was really fun, and of course we had some great tastings. And being right on Bourbon Street is always a trip.
It's one of these things where the evolution of that organization and the evolution of all of the other organizations as well, that are out there in the beer space these days, I think have really started to focus on the community as well, and not just, kind of going back to what I was saying before, like with music, where, yes, the beer is can be a focus, but there's also other things around the beer that foster the beer better.
Mhm.
And post COVID, being back in rooms together and not on Zoom, um, I think have helped the industry sort of figure out, or at least the beginnings of, a roadmap going forward. And I'm wondering if you've seen that as well, of like, how do we get through where we are now? How do we strengthen what we have now to make it stronger later on? Um, and then work towards goals that are good for everybody, not just a few. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we kind of think about, because everybody, saying like craft beer is dead, that's kind of been the narrative for the last few years. And I always say that no, it's just not, a nascent industry anymore. It's a grown ass business, so it's gonna, plateau. It's gonna have its ups and downs. And so, how do we reach new people, um, new generations as older generations are aging out or, continuing? They have the beer they like. There is, a number of consumer profiles, and that's what they do. So, part of that is coming back from COVID and community building. And I think one of the things that craft beer did really well in the beginning to build community was the festival circuit. Because you could go, you could taste a number of different things from, wild things, especially when you involve home brewers, all types of things. And those are really successful. And they brought in a lot of money, but we're just not seeing that attendance anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're not paying vendors anymore. So it's essentially a beer donation, and you see some of the same ones over and over again. And so if that was such a sense of I'm a craft beer drinker, this is my community, how do we shift with that? And how do we kind of change those festival things? And there are some people, doing different things, low ABV festivals, or kind of partnering with other types of groups. But it is challenging to, think about where we need to go and how we need to all come together, because, the MBAA, the BA, Pink Boots, any of these other groups that are out there are all in the same industry. And how can we all work together with all our powers that be? And, I sit on the board of both Mass Brewers Guild and Pink Boots. So I kind of have a foot in both worlds. And, the guilds obviously do different work, trying to work directly for their state and understand what we need to do there. But we all kind of have common goals. And I think one of the things that, in talking about reaching community, is people again trying to engage those people, like what are you doing for me? And I think a lot of the work that guilds and groups do is not seen, especially, man, the number of times I've read like a legislative document, I'm like, can someone just translate this in English to me? Like,
Yes.
is this good for me? Is this bad for me? And so, when we're asking people for dues, it's like, you don't understand, 6 years ago, you couldn't do XYZ in your tap room, and now you can. And that's directly because of the guild. So trying to understand how these groups can build their own community as leaders in the industry, and then also reach their local community.
I mean, it's the forward looking is so important right now because again you're right about all the headlines and the doom and gloom, and I don't think craft is dead, and um but I think it's on shaky ground, and you always need to be firming up those, the bedrock. I'm like mixing metaphors now, but it's yeah, it's heartening to hear, that smart people are trying to do um the right thing.
Mhm.
Um as you think about where you were 3 years ago when you started and now here at the beginning of year four, do you have that competition inside of yourself? Do you have that goal? Do you have something where a year from now you're like, yeah, I set out to accomplish it and hopefully you did?
Yeah, I mean, each year, because of the corporate backgrounds that Mike and I come from, we're used to like understanding, okay, these are our quarterly goals. These are, we use a lot of that corporate speak. Um, for better or for worse, there are some things that make corporations chug along as they do. Um, I think for me personally, it's about becoming a better technical brewer, which is why I applied to the MJF scholarship and got it for the UC Davis program. So I'll be starting that next year, which is awesome. And it's a program I've wanted to do. And I think with that challenge to myself, I have to understand that that may not be received as well as I want. If I think that I have technically improved a beer, a common consumer may not understand what that difference is. And so I just have to be happy with myself if I think that, I have improved it or I have skilled up in a way. And I can share that with people who are inquisitive about beers. Um, I think trying to understand how the scrum is going to go this year, and if we can really continue to pull people in and build this community differently each month. I think we have some cool things happening this year. We have the Olympics, that's always, brings people together.
Yep.
We have World Cup, that always brings people together. We're doing something really cool for Rev 250. So I think that there are a lot of things this year that we are not, producing, but that we will obviously do something for, that we can kind of have as big things to look back on. I mean, it is challenging. Part of me wants to say like, I hope we make it through year four. And I think, a lot
Sure.
of businesses are saying that, but I think we do have our internal goals that, when we look at, wow, what we started with what we're doing now, and understanding what, the burden of trying to be a community leader actually means and feels like, and to work through that as well.
So I want to ask one of, because you brought up the Olympics. If you had the opportunity or, the time to compete in one Winter Olympic sport, which is the first one that comes to mind?
Both of them that just came to mind, I would have to have the opportunity and the guts to do it.
Okay.
Um, the one where they fly through the air, they go off the ramp and then
Oh,
just,
the long jump, like the Alpine.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That would be so fun to just feel like you're flying. And I also got really pulled into like the whole crotch gate that, that was going on.
The
Um,
what?
that they sewed, one team got in trouble because there was video that they modified the crotch of the uniform after uniform inspections at some competition recently. And
For like wind resistance or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
Okay.
And so it
Well,
was
I'm
just,
gonna go look this up now.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was this, I got pulled into it. And so then I was like, oh, that would be a really fun one. But also the bobsled. I think that would just be so fun to just like be tucked in and be steering. I would not be the steerer. I don't think I'd just be the person. I think I'd be like the second or third. You just along for the ride.
Okay.
I think that would be very fun, but I don't have the chutzpah for either of those.
I like that. That's yeah, no, I don't think I would ever have the faith in myself to throw myself off of an alpine because that's real air there.
Uh-huh.
And and it's like it's probably blissful for, the 20 seconds you're in the air and then,
Yep.
shit, gotta land.
Yep,
Um
exactly.
so the real question that I was going to ask to wrap this up is I've been asking folks on the show this for a while. What we call the green door question, and the premise is on the TV show The Good Place. They introduce a concept of a green door in the final season, and the characters can walk through it and be wherever they want, doing whatever they want. So if we had a green door on our plane of existence and this conversation ended and you could walk through it and be in any pub or any brewery anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? Who would you want to be with? And what would you like to be drinking?
Ooh. Um, I would say it was a brew pub in, I want to say Bruges. It was along the water, and I would definitely just be there with my husband again, looking along the water and having probably an Orval or any sort of that type of beer, just straight from the source, and just truly enjoying it, and hearing like laughter and being out in nature. That's where I would be in Belgium.
That's delightful. That's I hope you get to do that soon.
Me too.
Um, People should come and visit you in person. They should bring their vinyl. They should hang out and either make you a destination or a pit stop on the way to someplace else. How do they find you? How do they connect with your brewery, with your brand?
We are on Instagram, Hot Plate Beer, and our website, hotplatebeer.com, and Facebook, all those socials. And we are in Pittsfield, which is right in downtown, which is the heart of the Berkshires. So about, 2.5 hours west of Boston. Berkshire County, I believe, is one of the few counties in the country that hits 3 different states. So we border Vermont, Connecticut, and New York. So if you're in any of those states, come on by. And right now we have some awesome skiing. So there's always leaf peeper season, and then summer is really great. It's warm in the day and nice and cool in the night. So a lot of good stuff going on year round here.
I love it. I have not visited in person yet, admittedly, and this will spur me on to do that. So, thanks for the chat. Thanks for being on the show, and thanks for all that you're doing. I think it's a cool story, and it's a great attitude that you all have, and a great plan. And I'd like to see more breweries step up in the same way. So thanks for sharing everything that you're doing.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
A reminder, you can reach me anytime on email. It's John Holl, that's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com. Make sure you join the This Week in Rauk Beer group on Facebook or follow at TW Rauk Beer on Instagram. Upload your photos, join the conversation. And you can support us by visiting allaboutbeer.com/support. When you're at the website, you can check out new content as well as the archives going all the way back to 1979. You can also find links to follow All About Beer on social media. Before we run, here is a note from this episode's sponsors. We thank them for their support, and we hope you'll give them your business.
Calling all hopheads. Dogfish Head 60-Minute IPA is a fantastically hoppy India Pale Ale that's beautifully balanced thanks to their unique continual hopping method. Delivering a pungent hop flavor that isn't crushingly bitter, 60-Minute is continually hopped throughout the boil for a full 60 minutes. Starting to see where the name comes from? Check out dogfish.com to learn more and to find some 60-Minute near you. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery, Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
If you like smart audio content, a reminder that All About Beer has a separate podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. You can listen to shows like Brew to Brewer, which is now a weekly show, and the All About Beer podcast with M. Sauter and Don Tess. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday. The BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And as for this show, Nate Schweber does the music. Jeff Quinn designed our logo. I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer.